Welcome to Amplify, the podcast for accounting firm growth. I'm your host, Meg Havener, and in this season, we're diving into the tools and technologies that are helping firms like yours work smarter, grow faster, and stay ahead in an ever-changing landscape. With that, please welcome today's guests, Jamie Miller and Don Breckenridge, partners and co-founders of Marketing by Numbers. Jamie and Don, do you mind telling our listeners a bit about yourselves and your company?
Sure. Thank you, Meg. Thank you for having us on the podcast today. So for a bit of a background, my name is Don Breckenridge with Marketing by Numbers. I am a serial entrepreneur. I'd started a company called Hatchbuck, which is a sales and marketing CRM, about 12 years ago or 15 years ago. And Jamie had joined Hatchbuck early early when we started to help drive sales and marketing. And we grew the company tremendously. Had thousands of firms that were using the sales and marketing CRM, and it was going great. But we noticed that we had a big contingent of firms, and specifically accounting firms, that were using our product. They would purchase the sales and marketing CRM, they'd load it up with their contacts, and they wouldn't know what to send to their prospects and to their clients. They didn't know how to create valuable thought leadership content. They didn't know how to design a great looking email. And so Jamie and I thought, well, what if we created a company that provided a more holistic approach specifically for accounting firms that combined the content, the technology, a little bit of marketing strategy, and a little bit of done for you service for those that need it, and put that together and offered it to the accounting industry. And that's why we created Marketing by Numbers. And so with Marketing by Numbers, we are a platform, an end-to-end marketing solution specifically for accounting firms that helps with the creation of content, the publishing of it, the creation of email templates, and sending those out, and same with social media, creating the social media posts. So Jamie, I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, sure. So my background, I have about 22 plus years in marketing and business development, both in corporate and startup environment. I've been working with Don now in a couple of different companies for about 10 years. I work a whole lot with the clients to not only help, to work with them as it relates to understanding the solution, but also in the strategy it takes and putting it all together. So, and of course, content creation is been added over the past several years as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for that history for both of you and Marketing by Numbers. So MarTech is such a broad category. Can you walk us through some of the key categories accounting firms should focus on, like thinking CRM, content management, webinar platforms, AI?
Well, it depends on where they're at right now, because there are a lot of firms that aren't doing anything. And then there are other firms that have full marketing teams and tech stacks. I think that when you look at the beginning of the maturity curve, you have to first start with some place to put your contacts. And typically that's a sales and marketing CRM. All too often we see accounting firms using their practice management system to house their contacts and to use that kind of as a email list and or repository, and that's not the place to have it. Sales and marketing CRMs are inexpensive, they're easy to use, and they are specifically designed to store your contacts, your prospects, your clients, your centers of influence, and so forth, and then be able to send them emails and so forth. So when we look at the tech stacks, certainly the CRM is going to be a first step. The next is a platform to be able to facilitate the content creation process, because you've got to be able to create good thought leadership content that is valuable to your recipients, to your prospects, to your clients. And more, you always have to think of with them in mind, but more importantly, it's really a sales tool ultimately. But so in the middle of the tech stack is something to help you create content and publish it to your website. We find that most firms on a website platform are using WordPress, and then for the ones that are more sophisticated, that are more advanced, they might be using HubSpot or another, or another CMS. Actually, we really see mainly WordPress and HubSpot. On the lower end, we sometimes see like a Squarespace or Wix. But usually, if you're on Squarespace or Wix, you're moving up to WordPress. And then finally, your sales and marketing CRM should be able to handle your email management. Now, if you don't have a sales and marketing CRM and you just want the basic, then there's email systems like a MailChimp or Constant Contact. But if you've got an all-in-one sales and marketing system, then then that'll handle the email sending and tracking. And then finally, on the social media, firms usually need some sort of social media manager that enables them to create posts and then to post to multiple properties at one time, making it very easy, and then to track the engagement with those. So those might be like a Hootsuite or Sprout Social or such. So that's what we see. And I think the most important thing when thinking about the marketing tech stack is that it all works together seamlessly, because like Meg, you probably have more things to do in a day than you can even count. And so what helps all marketing managers or anybody that's in the marketing process is if one product flows into the next product to create a seamless, efficient, cost-effective process.
So you said something really interesting in the beginning of that answer, Don, that I kind of want to circle back to. You said a lot of smaller size firms don't even have a CRM, and they're using a different type of system. Real quick, before we switch gears a little bit, can you share some insight for maybe those listeners who might be in that situation of why that isn't working? What are the 3 things that they would gain in functionality if they switch to a CRM system, so that they can help start the conversation within their firm?
So we were shocked when we entered this market. We had small firm clients and large firm clients, and we thought that most would already have some sort of system in place, and we couldn't have been more wrong. We found that most of the firms that became clients did not have anything in place, and some might have like an email list, a MailChimp or whatnot. But here's why it's important, is because when you want to start engaging with your prospects and your clients, you want to first create content and a great email template and send it out to them. And then you want to measure engagement. You want to see how many opens you're getting, which is really driven by the subject line. You want to see how many click-throughs you're getting, which is usually from what you put in the body of the email. You want to see who is clicking on which emails, because that tells you something about each one of your recipients, what their needs and interests are. And so it can help guide you in so many ways. It can help you to understand, am I creating content that my audience wants to read? And then it also helps you to identify which of my prospects, which of my contacts are interested in which topics, because you could use that for your business development efforts in targeting them. And I think that over time also, the better that you're able to understand the needs and desires of your audience, that will tell you what type of content you should be creating. And then as you become more mature in the marketing model, you might start creating specific content for specific groups. And that ends up getting the highest engagement. So if you just can't do any of that from a practice management system. Practice management systems are great. They have a purpose. It is not for your email marketing, and it's not for tracking demographics and characteristics of your contact base.
I will say, just to add on to that just a little bit, if you are a smaller firm and you're not ready for a CRM, maybe that's a tough sell, when you're going up into, the partner team and leadership. A good email marketing tool like a MailChimp, like a Constant Contact, can be a stepping stone to a CRM, because you do have the ability to create segmentation within those, create distribution groups and things like that. So when you are ready to move to a CRM, that content, that the contacts and the segmentation that you have established can translate into a CRM, so you can maintain distribution groups and things like that. So definitely keep that in mind for the for the smaller firms.
That's a great point, Jamie. So now transitioning, maybe thinking about how larger teams would approach their marketing tech stack. Since you work with both small and large, what are some of the biggest differences in how solo marketers versus the larger teams really just approach these decisions and what platforms they're going to use?
Well, it depends where they are in the marketing maturity. What we find is that the smaller firms really need the basics, where they just need to be consistent in creating content and emailing it out to their client base. We really focus on clients first and prospects second, because there's so much farming to be done within your own client base for new engagements. And so we really try to help our clients reach their clients. And so I think that for the smaller firms, I think that they just need to be consistent in the content creation and emailing it out. Also, I do think that we find a lot of them just need a little bit of help, like a service. And I know this is not a sales pitch for Marketing by Numbers, but what we found is that we ended up creating a small service for a few $100s a month where we just handle the posting of content and emailing it to their clients, because they had this gap, and they usually had like an office manager that was handling the marketing function, or they might assign the marketing function to a partner who doesn't know anything about marketing or even want to do anything about marketing. And so that creates inconsistency. So we're like, all right, we'll help solve that problem. So that's with the smaller firms. But with the larger firms, they're further along in the maturity model, and they're really looking to hone in on what type of content should we be writing for our audience. They want to have maybe some deeper content, more technical, that really shows their expertise. And then they're definitely more deliberate in what they send to who and what they're posting to social media. They usually have a content calendar where they're thinking well in advance of what am I going to write and when. And then they also are usually taking the firm's overall objectives and goals into mind when creating content, because there undoubtedly are certain areas of the business that the general partner wants to, or the leadership wants to push. And so I think that that they take that into account and help to push different segments, different service areas of the business, to help achieve the more global goals. Also, I do think that in the larger firms, marketing has a seat at the table, and it's an important seat. And I think that larger firms recognize the importance of marketing, whereas smaller firms, it kind of depends upon the smaller firm, but more often than not, smaller firms sometimes look at it more of a checkbox item, like, oh, we know we've got to do it, we got to have it, and I do see the benefits of it. But larger firms look at marketing more strategically in the growth of the firm, as a strategic piece or tool in the growth of the firm.
And this is a shameless plug, real fast, Jamie. Sorry, before we move on, if you haven't listened to season 6 of the Amplify podcast, it's all about proving your worth, regardless of what position you are within the marketing and business development sections in your firm, to help you get that seat at the table. Because I think you're 100% right, Don. You have to be a part of those strategic conversations and help shape the messaging, or at least, be aware of the messaging and the firm's operational goals in order to be successful as a marketing team. So that was a great point. And then Jamie, sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was just going to say, from the specific technology standpoint, a lot of the firms are using like a HubSpot, seeing HubSpot a lot, maybe Microsoft Dynamics, Marketo, some of those tools that not only allow you to automate and send out the communications, but to take the next steps, where you can build out multi-step campaign sequences for lead generation. I see the larger firms focusing on lead gen, advertising, things like that are kind of taking that, like they've done all the blocking and tackling, right? And now they're looking to drive specific growth through specific strategies. I'm seeing multi-step campaign sequences to solve a specific problem for a specific niche market, right? So it's when you have a team of people, you're able to kind of expand and do more related to those goals. And a lot of those more advanced technologies have an integrated way where you can do that through social media, through advertising, through lead capture, through multi-step campaign sequences, and things like that.
Meg, what does your tech stack look like? What do you use in yours?
So we're very fortunate to have quite a large tech stack, and we're across the board. As you mentioned, we are just now implementing HubSpot. We're currently in the middle of our migration. Very excited about it. We'll be up and running in a couple weeks. Before that, we used Pardot. We're still sticking with Salesforce on our CRM side. We leverage Drift for website traffic analytics and chatbot. We host monthly webinars, and we also have a video podcast at our firm. So we're recording this podcast on Riverside. We also have that on McGuire Sponsel, as well as On24 is our webinar platform, which is perfect. We use a ton of different programs, both paid and free, when it comes to AI and content creation, which I think kind of the examples that both of you shared is a pain point regardless the size of your firm. As marketers, content drives what we do. And whether you're a firm of one or a department of one or a department of 10, creating that content and being more efficient in that is a huge pain point, because you have collaborators from across industries, across niches, and it's usually marketing's job to wrangle everybody in. Okay, here's our constant messaging. Here's how we want to leverage the content. How can we create a waterfall, whether it's starting with webinars, starting with podcasts, starting with a blog, taking that downstream into nurture campaigns, into social posts, things like that. So finding ways that as marketing teams, we can become more efficient, and finding ways that we can become more efficient and just more agile as we continue to work across the firm and support all of our internal stakeholders. So
in your tech stack and in your workflow, what would you say is the number one challenge, the number one pain that you have?
That's a good question. And as the host, I was not prepared to answer this one. But I would say the biggest pain point, honestly, is content management. If we're being honest, we record different content in different platforms, then we'll edit it in a different platform, then we'll take it to a different AI to come up with a blog, then we'll move it into social media. So it's how do you maintain the accuracy of that content, but also digesting it in different ways, getting it where it needs to be, making sure the approval process is very seamless within your team as you have more people touch that content. But yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest pain point, is how do you make everything talk? How do you make everything easily accessible for the assets that need to transfer between platforms?
Yeah. We see the same thing. And you're obviously, that's a very, very mature tech stack and the things that you're talking about. And so you guys are looking for more efficiency in the process, because wouldn't you agree that as you mature and you keep adding tool after tool, and saying, oh yeah, let's do heat maps on our website, and let's do, and you start adding more tools, let's look more at analytics and so forth, that your responsibilities grow. And it's not a problem of just time, it's also a problem of expertise in each one of these areas. And so
100%.
Now you've got to create the content, and work with the subject matter experts to have them review it, approve it. Maybe they start adding in their own things, and which may restart the approval process, whatnot. Then you've got to repurpose it for different content, types, right? And manage it. It can be, and then report on the success of it in the end, right? And tie it back. And for the most mature firms, the one of the most challenging thing is, how do I tie this back to deals or engagements that we have won, and to be able to show the leadership what the ROI is of our marketing spend, and that is probably the most challenging thing to do.
Absolutely. And if you're not being asked to do that now, you will probably within the next 5 years. So it needs to be on your radar.
Definitely.
Jamie, any thoughts on leveraging MarTech, your your platforms that you have access to help bolster your kind of analytics and visibility within firm?
Yeah, I mean, being able to leverage like a CRM marketing automation platform is great because then you have a starting point for for getting some metrics, especially like email opens is a big one. Click-throughs can get a little tricky these days because you never know if bots are clicking emails but I think open emails you can still know that your emails are getting through to an audience if you have a certain level of open rate. If you're getting 11, 10%, you might be not hitting the inbox. So things like that when it comes to stats. Looking for website traffic, I think that's Google Analytics is a great tool. There's other ones out there, but Google Analytics is great. When you're using more advanced marketing automation platforms, you can do website tracking. Like we use Benchmark One is a lot of our clients use that. We offer a custom version of that where you can track activity on your website, because that's a great way to be able to see, okay, somebody clicks on your link and they go to read an article, but did they go somewhere else after that? Did they check out, a service area that you cover, or maybe a specific industry where you may have expertise? Being able to track that type of information will help to better understand, that full client, engagement and that activity. But you can get, quite a bit of that even, without, using like the, super expensive, high-end marketing platforms.
Well, Jamie, you brought up, okay, so when you're talking about the CRM and tracking activities, I want to take that just to the next step for the audience, because this is what one of the most important things I think is that when tracking activity, the behaviors of your audience, whether they're clicking on an email or visiting a page of your website and flowing through or filling out forms or whatnot, it tells you stuff about the person, about the email recipient or person visiting your website. And it's important within the CRM for it to be able to automatically start tagging a contact with different terms that are relative to what they are viewing. So let's say that, let's put this into some specific examples. If we create an article on research and development tax credits and publish it to our website and send out an email, and Meg, I send you the email, you click on you get the email, you open it and you click through to the website, I want our system to be able to tag your contact profile with R&D tax credits. And then maybe I want to keep a record or a tally of how many times you are clicking on things about R&D tax credits. Because maybe if I see that you've clicked on it for five times, I want some sort of automated action to go to business development to say, hey, Meg has clicked on 5 different articles or videos or webinars or emails about R&D tax credits, and Meg probably wants to talk to somebody about R&D tax credits. It's an opportunity, right? And so I think that it's great. The tagging within a CRM is great for identifying opportunities, but then also segmenting your contact base based upon their needs and interests for your future email sends. And so that's why no matter what you're using, like Benchmark One has it, other systems do have it, not all of them do, but tagging is important, and it's different than having a list, like a MailChimp list. You don't want to put people on lists. You want to have contact profiles that you tag. And I know that's probably a little more advanced, but it is important. And but that's really where the power of a CRM comes into play.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward. We'll have, for our listeners, an episode just dedicated to CRM later this season. And also this season will be part of a 2-part series. So we're focused on marketing tech platforms for season 7. Season 8 will be focused on sales technology. So there'll be some overlap. So I'm really excited to get into the segmentation, automations, those kind of things that firms can really use to level up and drive engagement. So I do want to talk a little bit more about some of the other platforms. CRM, we could sit here and talk about for a couple hours and still not have even barely scratched the surface. But thinking about, some of the other tools with your clients, can you shed some light on maybe some of the AI tools that we've mentioned, some things that can help with content creation for firms of size. There's a ton of free options. There's a ton of, relatively affordable paid options. We're talking ChatGPT, Jasper, things like that. Either of you guys have recommendations for either firms just starting out and diving into AI, guardrails, legal considerations that need to be discussed within the firm before the use of those platforms roll out? I know this is a huge, hot topic right now. So,
yeah. So ChatGPT is great. Most people have a login to ChatGPT. If you aren't on the $20 a month plan, I definitely suggest that you do that. I think that the models are getting better. They're hallucinating net less, and they're providing more comprehensive information, especially with ChatGPT. Its latest models have what's called chain of thought, where it takes a little bit longer time to think through what you're asking it. And if it takes your question a few trips around the track to come up with an answer, and that has improved its responses immensely. So certainly ChatGPT is great. Here's where the issues that we found with a lot of AI tools is that they are trained on the Common Crawl. So OpenAI, when they're training the model, they are training it on billions or however many web pages are in the Common Crawl. And it's a huge number. And those web pages, some are current, some are older. And there aren't many guardrails on what that, and the Common Crawl is a thing. Like if you Google Common Crawl, it'll show, you can download it. It's, gigs and gigs of web page data. And so the problem is that when you're using ChatGPT, that the data that's trained on, you don't really have a lot of control over. And that's what can lead to hallucinations or erroneous information. And so the strategy that helps overcome that is first to do what you normally would do when wanting to write an article. You search for sources. You read what the IRS has written. You read what other firms have written. You read what Accounting Today or the Journal of Accountancy has written, right? And you gather your sources. The second thing that you do is that once you have your sources, you leverage those when using AI to write something. Now, ideally, and this is a little bit of a pain, but ideally, you would create a prompt asking ChatGPT or whatever, whichever one you're using. There are others, and like DeepSeek just came out. I don't necessarily say go use DeepSeek, but there are other ones like Anthropic and Claude and Gemini and so forth. But ideally you would include the content of those articles, of your source articles, along with your prompt or in your prompt, but along with your request to write an article or a blog or whatnot. And then the AI will leverage those sources first and foremost to create the output. That helps to drive down hallucinations and dramatically improve the accuracy of the results. This is not a sales pitch for Marketing by Numbers, but our strategy to overcome that is that we built a content monitoring system inside Marketing by Numbers where we monitor thousands and thousands of accounting firms and what they write. And we have AI analyze everything that they write. And we make this all available to our clients. And then when they're wanting to write an article, they can kind of do a search and say, show me all the articles they're written on research and development tax credits, since I used that as an example before. And you find articles that are in that topic area, and then our system will just leverage those articles to help with writing the new article. And we found that it does really well. And you can do that manually. You certainly could do that in ChatGPT or Claude or the other systems. But that has definitely helped out quite a bit.
That's incredible advice, though. ChatGPT and other AI platforms like it is only good as the prompts that you give it. So take some time to really spell out your target audience. Like you said, identify your sources so you can really level up your content and what you're trying to achieve in ChatGPT. And it's not just content. There's so many different ways. We've leveraged it just to help us with scheduling and organize it, as we're planning out seasons of podcasts or webinars and those type of things. Sometimes it helps, pick and grab, the information easily, so you don't have to spend time, minutes, hours sifting through schedules trying to find when times are alive. So there's a lot of different ways that I think teams can leverage ChatGPT. It just takes time to sit down and experiment, or go through Reddit, or have someone else give you like a, hey, have you ever tried doing this? I did a scavenger hunt for my kids once on it. It was so easy, and it took 5 minutes, and it was like 2 hours of free childcare for me, so it was perfect.
Well, it was funny. I was on ChatGPT the other day, and this actually brings up another challenge in using ChatGPT without source material. I'm into this dumb show, Silo, on Apple TV.
I've heard amazing things about it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So I just watched the final episode, and so I get on ChatGPT and I asked a question. I was like, so tell me, what XYZ meant in the final episode. Sorry, not going to spoil anything. And ChatGPT comes back to me and they say, well, no, the final season hasn't come out yet. It was due to launch back in November. And I'm like, are you sure? I've watched the entire season 2, and they said, nope, just check Apple, and Apple has not made an announcement. The point there is that sometimes there can be a delay, even now still, with the information that ChatGPT is pulling from. So that becomes critical when you're wanting to communicate about beneficial ownership information. I mean, how many times has that changed in the last 5 weeks, right? Back and forth. But so if the tools that you're using aren't up to date on the most recent legislation, it can get false information. So that's another reason why you want to make sure that the sources you're pulling are pulling from the most recent. So if you're using ChatGPT, that's great. If you're talking about recent legislation, make sure that you're providing timely sources when creating that article. So that's, we do have a big focus on that with our AI writer as well, to make sure that we're pulling recent and accurate information, which just, makes the results much better.
Meg, you hit on something earlier, and when you were asking, you said about like legal and so forth. And one of the concerns that we hear over and over for people that are kind of new to AI is they sometimes are uncomfortable using AI to write content. And they, like, well, is this ethical, or is that okay? Do I, can I have it help me write something and publish it? Is that okay? Is it still our work and whatnot? And I think that first of all, when you're using AI to write, it will write unique material, like novel material. Now, if you're writing on something like the the new tax updates for 2025, there are only so many ways that you can say that. So you're going to have some sort of, but like if you took the output and threw it into Grammarly for plagiarism checker, it's going to have a low percentage. And it's going to write very well. But here's the most important thing is that your goal is to write valuable content for your audience, for your clients, for your prospects. They don't care how you wrote it. They don't. What they want and expect is that you're going to keep them informed, and you're going to send them valuable, accurate information that they can leverage to improve their lives. And I think that that's very important. I think that AI helps to speed that process and to expand your knowledge base, because in marketing you're usually not a CPA, and you either are going to need a subject matter expert to help weigh in and give you the information. And we know how hard it is to get a subject matter expert to spend any amount of time with you, right? Or you're going to leverage AI with source material to help take you from 0 to 90% in a matter of 5 minutes, and then use your subject matter expert from there to help to refine it, check for accuracy, and so forth. And that produces, the end result is is valuable content that your readers want to read.
You mentioned Grammarly. That is by far one of my favorite tools in our toolbox. We've put every piece of content through it, whether or not we've leveraged AI. We have the premium version, which checks for plagiarism and also will tell you the percentage of AI that's detected in the piece, which is helpful. So, if you're a little concerned about your content sounding AI, or, Google pinging you because it was influenced by AI because we know their algorithm changes, and now the robot doesn't like when you use robot to create content. I always love that analogy when you're explaining, the Google algorithm to our SMEs. We use Grammarly with every piece of content, emails, blogs, anything, and it's just been such a great tool. So if you don't have that, it's very inexpensive. I would say get that now. Just put it in your toolbox and leverage it as much as possible. Well, we've talked about a lot of different platforms. I'm curious if you guys wouldn't mind sharing maybe some lessons learned, both positive and negative. So maybe what are some of the common pitfalls or mistakes you've seen accounting firms make when implementing or using MarTech? You wouldn't mind sharing?
I'll start off there. Then this might be directed more to the small team, the solo marketer. Probably the biggest challenge when using MarTech or pitfall that I've seen is inconsistency. Okay, when you start posting thought leadership content, everybody comes off. I'm going to post a certain number of articles. I'm going to send a newsletter each month. I'm going to send a one-off email on important topics. But then you get busy. Then you get distracted. And I see people hitting the ground running. They're producing a podcast every month. They've done 3 months in a row, and then they fall off for 6 months. Or when it comes to social media, they post, and then all of a sudden they haven't posted anything for 3 months. So what I think is really important there is to set your goals and stick to them for consistent. And whatever those goals are, maybe you're doing this for the first time and you're going to start off with, I want to post 2 articles a month and I want to send 1 newsletter. And that's it. Stick to those goals and be consistent. Same thing with social media. Maybe you just want to start off doing 1 post a week. And that's great. That's a great place to start. But you have to stay consistent when you're communicating, because all of a sudden 3 months goes by and you haven't communicated with your clients. Then they're not looking to you to be educated anymore on topics. They're looking somewhere else. So I would say inconsistency is probably one of the biggest pitfalls that I've seen.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes the order of things, like the priorities, I would start with your contact list. And one of the problems that we see is that firms, if they haven't been emailing, they'll go and grab a contact list from 10 years ago. And they will throw that into a CRM and they'll want to blast that out. And a lot of those emails are bad. They're old. When you send out emails that have a high bounce rate or a high spam complaint rate, those erode your reputation and your ability to get into the inbox in the future. And so when you're starting off with emailing, take your email list and 2 things. First of all, make sure that you've got current clients and prospects in there. Weed out people that you haven't talked to in 10 years. Second, run your email list through a service like NeverBounce that can check. It's not perfect, but for about maybe 60 or 70% of the email addresses, it can determine whether or not that email address is still good. It helps to reduce or minimize bounces and then keep you out of the penalty box.
That's great advice. We don't use NeverBounce as often as we should, so that's even a good reminder for me. But even thinking about what both of you guys have shared is still a challenge for larger firms. When you get to departments, 7-10 people that are often siloed, when you're thinking about, okay, hey, we're going to send this email out for this industry on Monday, and this email goes out on Tuesday, Wednesday, and hey, we have this webinar and that's sending out. A lot of those lists have some overlap. So having someone, being mindful and strategic and thinking, hey, okay, here's what we have planned content-wise for the month. Here's where that message lies, whether that's through email, social, we're hosting a webinar, we're doing a podcast. You want to have a theme. It's nice to showcase your content across multiple platforms, but just making sure it's not a little bit overkill or you're over communicating with your audience. So I think there's a sweet spot that people need to find regardless of the size of the firm they are. So those are all great recommendations. How about on the flip side? What are some really good best practices that you guys have seen success with clients and their investment within marketing platforms?
Well, I think that people have done really well with marketing by numbers, but no. So I'll tell you what, just a small tidbit on emails. We've seen successes at every level. One of the things that we do see from time to time are very poor looking emails or websites that are out of date. I think that everybody needs to realize that your website and the emails that you send and the social media posts that you post are representative of you. And you want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. And that means that you want to make sure that your website looks great. You want to make sure that your email templates are, look really good and professional. And same with your social media posts. And because if somebody is considering doing business with you, they probably received a recommendation from somebody. Oh, you should go look at this firm. And they're probably going to go to your they may go to your website first just to check out, what you all do and what you're about. And then they'll probably get in touch with somebody. And so make sure that first engagement is great. And this is just not as this is just as important for prospective employees as it is for prospective clients. So remember that you want to put your best foot forward for them too. And we know more often than not that marketing is spanning both the selling services of the firm, but also selling to candidates for employment.
Absolutely.
I have a, go ahead, Mike.
No, you take it, Jamie.
Okay. Well, no, I just wanted to share a couple of successes that came to mind. One, it was really cool. There was a specific legislation that was passed for a specific industry in a state, and so what they did is they set up a multi-step campaign sequence to educate the audience on the new legislation that passed, and they said, "Hey, if you need help executing against this, let us know." And it was a multi-step campaign with a very targeted audience, and they got really good, solid results, and it created new opportunities just from that. So that's a really cool way to leverage campaign. From the content creation front, there's another client that they were struggling to create, 2 to 3 articles per month. They started leveraging AI. There's, of course, a lot of different ways to do it, but in this case, the marketing team started leveraging AI to create content that was then shared with the subject matter experts to, just as Don mentioned, to refine and polish and optimize. And they went from creating 2 and 3 articles a month up to 12 articles. So it helped them to just significantly expand the amount of targeted content they were creating with the same amount of resources and not taking any more time from their subject matter experts and advisors. So those are two great success stories, I'd say.
Okay, thank you guys for sharing some of those examples. I think both great starting points for smaller firms and good reminders for the medium to large size firm listeners. Looking ahead, kind of what, AI is hot right now. It's been hot for a little bit. What other trends or emerging technologies in the MarTech space do you think accounting firms should keep on their radar?
Well, I think that AI is going to be the number one. It has the potential to disrupt this whole industry. And we are seeing things like OpenAI just released Operator, which is their first foray into agents that can, like with Operator, it has its own browser. You can ask it to do something, and it will open up the browser, and it'll start going and creating a Zapier webhook, creating a Zapier a Zap, and it was pretty crazy. And so what we're going to see, I think that our industry is in for a lot of change over the next few years because of AI, and it's going to change how we create content, but it's also going to really change on how content is consumed by all of us. are we going to go to Google to search, or are we just going to, have our chatbot that goes out and does the research for us? And so what do we, there's so many questions with, SEO and traffic generation, and are the AI bots that are consuming our information and not necessarily people, and all these different questions. But I think that what I'd keep an eye on is AI, where agents are going this year, how agents will start to handle certain workflow tasks of the marketing manager, and how those agents will slowly progress into being kind of, well, I hate to use the term co-pilot, but kind of like an employee, like somebody, a great, very sophisticated, smart helper to accomplish tasks, and to be doing this not only when we're conversing with them or telling them, but when we're not.
Do you have any great resources that when you're doing AI research, or any type of research within marketing technology, what are some of the sites that you frequent to get your information?
So well, there are a couple of them. So there's a podcast called the AI Breakdown.
Okay.
And that is kind of a quick, like 15-minute of like, here's the news, and they dive into a specific topic, and it's great. There's also a site called the AI Exchange that is a large community of AI enthusiasts that all are on Slack and can converse. And really, I will tell you that probably one of the number one places where I get information is TikTok. I mean, as soon as, like, we saw that DeepSeek came out, and that's why the stock market today, Nvidia is down like 11 or 13%, because of this new model that came out of China that's open source that anybody can use for very cheap. And that started to pop up on TikTok, and with people saying, all right, here's how I installed it, here's how I used it, here are the costs, and here's why it's a game changer. And so if you want like up to the minute news, I'm glad that they gave a moratorium on getting rid of TikTok, and I hope that they figure out a solution, because it has been a very valuable resource.
Yeah, it's interesting how the conversation shifted. We've never used TikTok at the firm, but more and more, should we explore? Should we get one? Not just for consuming our own, research and knowledge as individuals, but should we be sharing our content on TikTok, because the audience is there? It's not just college students.
It is. You just have to. It's such a different, like the way that you present your information in a TikTok is so different from your other ways, from your other channels. And I think it's very challenging for firms to do that. But they definitely should be looking into that, because that's where it's all going.
Perfect. Well, I think we've covered almost everything under the sun. We'll break down each of these categories throughout this season. But to wrap things up, you mind if we do a quick round of rapid fire questions, Jamie and Don?
Sure.
All right. Jamie, let's start with you. What is one tool that you think is underutilized by accounting firms?
A social media manager. I think they're like. I think a lot of firms are, especially mid to smaller, may not be leveraging a social media calendar, and they're posting, directly on, Facebook, LinkedIn, on those one-off posts. But I think a big advantage is being able to start looking at your social media strategy in a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. So you're not looking at, I got to post that. You're scheduling out a certain number of posts each month for the calendar. That might be holidays, that might be firm anniversaries, that might be thought leadership content. But you're able to take a look at your social media from a calendar view, which totally changes the game and changes how you think about social media.
Absolutely. Great answer. All right, Don, what is the most common question you get from your clients just about marketing technology in general? This might be a tough one. A
lot of my questions are around AI these days. But and a lot of the questions are around using AI to create content, and what do we need to do, and is it ethical, and those type of questions. Those come up over and over. The other ones, which are more, I don't want to say negative, but it's constantly on if clients get themselves into trouble on email, they send emails that end up getting a high spam complaint rate, or they're not getting the deliverability, and it's usually something that they're doing, and then they want to know why. And so that's why I say be really careful about what you're sending, to make sure you're sending valuable content to people that you know and who know you, and to help keep you out of the penalty box.
Yeah, be proactive. It's hard to come back from that.
It is. It's yeah.
And I would tie on the one that I get is contact management and segmentation. Where do I start, and how do I do it in an efficient way where it's something that I can actually drive towards results. So that's one. Sorry, I stepped on your question.
No, you're right.
Jamie, that's not an easy one to unpack. There's several follow-up questions that go along with that. Okay, and then this one for both of you. I'm curious your perspectives. If you could only recommend, and Don, I believe you answered this earlier, but if you could only recommend one MarTech investment for firms starting from scratch, what would it be and why?
Well, I mean, this is not to be self-serving. I would probably look at like a marketing by numbers, like an all-in-one system that helps you get started quickly and ties everything together and makes it easy. I think and that's affordable. I think that's what most firms really need, and because it's just too hard. It's hard. It is hard. And it's hard creating content. It's hard sending it out. And that's why you've got to have something that's just easy.
What about you, Jamie?
So I think what you were thinking was a CRM, that it's great to have. And I would say a place to organize and manage your contacts other than practice management and other than an Excel spreadsheet, right? Yeah. So that could be something. It could be a MailChimp, for some of the ones that are just trying to get their contact management established. But going into a simple CRM solution or a way to manage your contacts electronically, I think is something that's great, because it's a stepping stone to so many additional things: targeted communication, consistent emails, tracking, business development, and so on. But getting a step towards that in some capacity, I think, is important. But the end goal should be working towards a CRM platform as your firm grows, and that, because that need's not going to go away.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both. You've given our listeners a ton to unpack and think about. I'm really excited to continue the rest of the season and dive into each of kind of these categories of technology. But that's it for this episode of Amplify. Thanks for spending some time with me today as we unpacked the MarTech stacks that are helping accounting firms thrive. For our listeners, if you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe to Amplify, share the podcast with a colleague, or leave a review. Your feedback helps bring us more valuable content to you each season. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring how accounting firms are leveraging technology to grow and succeed. Well, until next time, thank you all for joining us. Jamie, Don, thank you both for joining the conversation and sharing your insights. Do you want to tell our listeners how they can reach you if they have questions or want to connect with you about marketing by numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to our website at www.marketingbynumbers.io. You can reach me by email, jmiller@marketingbynumbers.io, or our phone number is 314-433-5800. We'd love to have a conversation about any of the topics that we had today and kind of talk through your own specific challenges and goals.
And be sure to link to us. To connect with us on LinkedIn. So, always happy to connect.
Yes, likewise. So we're all on LinkedIn. Find us. We'll put everybody's contact information in the show notes, and we'll see you for the next episode.